start. This is a very atypical day because of the strikes, of course. So not many people will be able to come. But the lectures will be recorded, and people can watch online. So this is okay. On the positive side, there's going to be more food during the coffee break for us. It's not going. Yes. So the person that is in charge of the coffee break is here. So I think we have lots of food for the coffee break. So Thomas is going to continue his lectures on leptogenesis and neutrino physics.
Okay. So thanks to come so many. There are not that many people either on. It's increasing. 6 people. Okay. So yesterday I was starting to introduce, at the end I was starting to introduce the Weinberg operator. So one way to recap a bit what I said, one way to introduce it is just to say that if neutrinos are of the Majorana type, you need anyway electroweak symmetry breaking to induce them, because a Majorana mass for a neutrino has this form. So if SU2 left is not broken, it means that you will also get the same for the partner of the left-handed neutrino in the SU2 left doublet. So E left going to E plus right. And so through the same mass, basically. Okay? That, of course, violates charge conservation. So the way you have to introduce the neutrino masses, if they are of the Majorana type, and this is also true for the Dirac case also, in fact, is that you need to do it through electroweak symmetry breaking. So basically, you need an interaction which goes like L bar C L, because this will give you a nu bar C nu. Okay. And then you have to put some power of the Higgs doublet, okay, at some power n. And because Majorana mass is given by only these interactions. So the only thing you can have here are Higgs doublet, because they will give you vacuum expectation value, and then you get only the mass. Okay. Now for n equal to 1, there is no such term, because you would have 3 doublets, and it's not a SU2 left invariant. Okay. And that's one of the reasons why lepton number is conserved in the standard model, is because here you cannot write an interaction with n equal to 1, because with n equal to 1 you would have a renormalizable interaction, dimension 4, so nothing would forbid it in the standard model, and if it was there, then it would mean that lepton number would be broken, because this is delta L equal to 2. Okay, these mass terms are delta L equal to 2, and the scalar has no lepton number. Okay, so it doesn't work, but with n equal to 2, it works, and what you can write down is an effective Lagrangian, which you can write as C alpha beta over lambda, L C alpha bar, H tilde star, times H tilde dagger L beta. So this is SU2 left invariant. Here H tilde is IT2H star. And you can show that if L goes to UL under SU2, H goes to UH, and H tilde also goes to H tilde. And so you can show that this, the U matrices will cancel when you do an SU2 left transformation. And this is SU2 left invariant, okay? So you have to write down an interaction which is SU2 left cross U1 invariant with only L bar C, L, and H to the some power, at least 2 powers. And after you replace the X doublet by the vacuum expectation value, you will induce a neutrino mass, okay? So basically, you can write down this interaction as a 4 external leg interaction, L alpha, L beta, H and H. Okay, with a coupling which is C alpha beta over lambda, where lambda has dimension 1, because the operator has dimension 5, and the Lagrangian has to have dimension 4. Okay? So this lambda will be typically the mass of the particles beyond the standard model which will induce this operator. This we will see later, but at the moment we are still not there. What we just do is to replace the Higgs boson by the vacuum expectation value, and if you do that, you have just L alpha, L beta, okay? And here you have C, so L alpha goes like that, and L beta goes like that. So it's a C alpha beta over lambda, V square over 2, because the vacuum expectation of the doublet is V over square root of 2. Okay? And so it tells you that this is nothing but a Majorana mass, but here, sorry, it's not the new L, it's the nu. It's only the nu left which will come out, because this will be the one which will multiply the neutral component of the Higgs doublet, which gets a VEF. Okay? So you generate a neutrino, a Majorana neutrino mass for the left-handed neutrinos in this way, but no Majorana mass for the left-handed electrons, because this is SU2 left invariant, and the vacuum expectation value is a neutral component, so you cannot induce anything which would break electric charge. I mean, like this term, okay? So that's the way you can induce neutrino masses without Majorana neutrino masses without inducing equivalent masses for charged leptons which would break electromagnetism, okay? So now, if you look at this, so basically it tells you that the effective Lagrangian, it's effective because it is not an interaction you have to start with in the Lagrangian, because it is non-renormalizable, it has dimension 5, so you have to induce it from BSM physics, so it's effective. From the exchange of a heavy BSM state, we will see typically. So this effective Lagrangian will contain a 1/2 C alpha beta over lambda V square nu bar left C alpha nu left beta plus HC. You have also a plus HC here. Okay? So this is the Majorana mass matrix you will induce in this way with alpha and beta, which can be E, mu, or tau. Okay? Now, next, what you immediately see is that if C alpha beta is of order 1, so C alpha beta will be typically the couplings involved in the diagram which from BSM physics will induce this operator. So you could naively expect that the couplings are of order 1, like in the standard model. Most of the couplings are of order 1 or not far, okay, except for some Yukawa couplings which can be smaller, but you can make this assumption. And if also lambda, which will be the scale of new physics, is much bigger than V, so typically the masses of the BSM state which will induce this operator are much bigger than the 246 GeV, then you see that mu, typical mass scale for in the mass matrix, will be much smaller than V, okay, because you have V square over lambda. And so this is nothing but the seesaw mechanism. So the seesaw mechanism is a mechanism where from BSM physics you induce such an operator. And since the scale of new physics is assumed to be much higher than the electroweak scale, you get in this case, you get a straightforward explanation for why the neutrino masses would be so small, because I remember that the mu have to be smaller than 1.1 eV. So one question, of course, is why the neutrinos have masses so much smaller than all of the masses we know in nature for the particles, okay? So we have to explain why the neutrino masses would be so small, and this provides an explanation. If you assume new physics at a very high scale, then the neutrino masses, which are proportional to V square over lambda, will be much smaller than the electroweak scale. Okay, so typically, for couplings of order 1, you need typically lambda of order 10 to the 14 GeV or so, or 15 GeV. And this gives you mu of order 0.1 eV, which is about the square root of the Dal times square 2-3, which is the bigger mass splitting which has been determined by neutrino oscillation experiment. So I mean, if you have 3 masses, at least one mass must be bigger than the square root of the largest mass splitting square. And we know that this is 10 to the minus 2.5, 10 to the minus 3 eV square. So the square root is 0.1 eV typically. Okay? Or anyway, something smaller than 1.1 eV. Okay? So this is a seesaw mechanism. Now the next point is to know how to induce such an operator from BSM physics. So, in fact, you can induce this Weinberg operator. So the Weinberg operator can be induced from 3-level exchange of heavy or several heavy BSM states. And if you want to do that at 3 levels, there are only 3 possibilities. So in fact, you can already guess what will be those possibilities. In these operators, all 4 fields are doublets. Lepton doublet, X doublet, they are all doublets under SU2 left. So it means that you can, you have 4 doublets, H, H, L, L. So you could, if you want to induce this operator from the exchange of a particle at 3 level, this particle will either couple to L and H, and on the other side to L and H. So typically, you can have LH, LH, and then you have a particle which will be a fermion in between. Or you can have LL, HH. This first possibility leads to two different possibilities with LH, which is either a singlet of SU2 left, because with two doublets you can do a singlet, or a triplet of SU2 left, because with two doublets you can do 2 by 2 is equal to 1 plus 3 for SU2. So you can do, when you combine L and H, you can take them in the singlet combination or in the triplet combination, okay? And here you will have only one possibility. In fact, here it is with LL and HH in a triplet combination under SU2 left. So you could think, but I could combine the two lepton doublets, it's 2 times 2, so it's 1 plus 3. So you could say, okay, I could combine them in a triplet way, but I could also combine them in a singlet way. But in fact, the singlet way gives you 0. No singlet combination. And that you can show because when these two particles are, these two fields are, these two doublets are identical, LL or HH. And when you take 2 times 2, the singlet is antisymmetric under SU2. So since they are the same, you will get, especially for H, here you could still consider 2 different flavors, but here you have only one X doublet. And so, I mean, you will get if you take H tilde star H tilde dagger, in a singlet combination, you can see that you will get H plus H0 minus H0 H plus. So there is no possibility to induce this operator from the exchange of a singlet particle here, okay, singlet scalar. So here you have a fermion, which is either a singlet or a triplet, and here you have a scalar, which is a triplet, okay? So this is called type 1 seesaw, which is the most considered one. This is called type 3 seesaw. And this is called type 2 seesaw. Okay, so now let's go to those 3 possibilities. We will mainly consider the first one, but also consider once we understand the first one, the third one is basically the same, and the second one is easy to understand also. So let's go to the type 1 seesaw model. So typically, type 1 is you exchange a fermion, which is a singlet of SU2. And on top of that, when you combine L and H, it has hypercharge equal to 0. I mean, when you combine L and L bar C, it's L bar C is like LT, so it's like L. And H tilde star and H tilde daggers, it's also same hypercharge. So you can see that when you combine these two. So basically, the fermion you consider here is a a total singlet of the standard model. It's a singlet under SU2, it has no hypercharge. So typically, it is nothing but what we called right-handed neutrino. A neutrino is a fermion which is neutral. And this one will be neutral because it has no SU2 left number and no hypercharge. So the electric charge is neutral, okay? The fact that we call them right-handed is just a convention. I mean, so it's right-handed plus new right C, which is left, okay? You have always to take the conjugate state too. Okay, so now let's write the Lagrangian we can write in this case. So typically the Lagrangian, I mean, you need a renormalizable Lagrangian with BSM physics. The BSM physics here will come from the fact that we introduce extra fermion singlets, we call them the right-handed neutrinos. Okay, and we have to write down renormalizable interaction, so at most dimension 4, which could induce this diagram. Okay, so what can we write down? First, you can write down a Yukawa coupling, which is this one. No, I am too fast. H tilde Dagger L alpha plus HC. So this we have seen already. It's nothing but a Yukawa coupling. Okay. So this is the Yukawa coupling I already discussed, which gives you Dirac masses. Okay. So I mean, if you take the neutral component of the H tilde Dagger, you will get minus y nu ij nu bar right I. So I put an I here because I assume that there are several right-handed neutrinos. Okay. Nu left alpha H naught plus HC. And this, once we replace H by V over square root of 2, gives you y nu ij V over square root of 2 nu right bar, nu left alpha plus HC. So this is nothing but a Dirac mass term, okay? So this is M nu Dirac, a 3x3 mass matrix if you assume that there are 3 right-handed neutrinos, okay? So if you have only this interaction, you get Dirac masses, not Majorana masses, okay? So now, this is perfectly possible, but if you do that, to get M nu of order 1.1 EV, typically, you need Y nu of order 10 to the minus 11. So you need a very, I mean, there you have no explanation for why the neutrino masses would be so small. I mean, we know, for example, that for the top quark, we need a Yukawa coupling of order 1 to have a 175 GeV. For the electron, we need a Yukawa coupling of order 10 to the minus 6 to get half a MeV for the mass of the electron. But here we are still way below for the masses. So you need a Yukawa coupling which is even much smaller, 10 to the minus 11. So it looks a bit weird because, yes?
I don't understand the indices in the Yukawa couplings.
So, you are right, yeah, sorry. So, yeah, here it's an alpha. I didn't copy what I have in my notes. Okay? Yeah. So, I mean, why not? I mean, already the Yukawa coupling of the electron is 10 to the minus 6. So we know already that some Yukawa couplings are small. But here we need even smaller Yukawa coupling, so it can be just so. But it would be kind of more appealing if we could instead invoke the seesaw mechanism where you see why you have this hierarchy of scale. Okay? So that's possible, but you could say why suddenly the neutrinos, they would have Yukawa coupling so smaller than all other couplings, okay? Now, that's an argument, but that's not the main argument. The main argument is that if you introduce right-handed neutrinos, this is not the only interaction you can write down. You can also write down Majorana masses for those right-handed neutrinos. So your Lagrangian, so it's a kind of a big, but in fact the Lagrangian, I mean the philosophy of particle physics is always that you assume a set of symmetries and after you write down the most general Lagrangian invariant under those symmetries. So now, since these right-handed neutrinos, they are total singlet of the standard model, nothing forbids to write down Majorana mass terms for those right-handed neutrinos. Okay, plus HC. I mean, this is a right-handed neutrino like that and another one like that, both flowing towards the cross. I mean, for left-handed, it is forbidden because it violates hypercharge, SU2 left, and so on. But for right-handed, since they are total singlets, nothing forbids them, okay? Mu right IJ. You don't violate electric charge, you don't violate hypercharge with such an interaction, okay? Yes?
Just a second. Just a second. Because there are people online, they want to hear you.
It's not a little bit problematic, but two kind of different representations of the same particle, because at these other Lagrangian, are you using two different representations for a particle of the same nature? So
No, I mean, you have, at the beginning of the first lecture, I was, I think, insisting on the fact that, for example, the left-handed electron and the right-handed electron, they are totally different physical particles if there is no mass, no Dirac mass. It's only because they have a Dirac mass that at the end of the day, they combine into a Dirac four-component spinor. And here it's the same, in fact. I mean, the right-handed neutrinos, which you assume, I mean, I call them right-handed neutrinos, but I could call them singlet fermions. And it's just a name. But they are, as long as there is no mass, they have nothing to do with the left-handed neutrinos. We call both of them neutrinos, but it is just because at the end they will combine. Okay, it's because, for example, here they combine to form a Dirac mass. But to start, before you electroweak symmetry breaking, there is no mass, and those particles, they have nothing to do one with the other, you see? So why should, I mean, in the standard model, anyway, you have there is a short answer to your question. The right-handed electron in the standard model is a singlet of SU2 left. The left-handed electron is a doublet. So you already assume different representation. And here you just do the same. There is nothing new. Okay? So,
but just to come back, maybe the confusion is that you can have both a Dirac mass and a Majorana mass at the same time. And that's no problem.
Okay, but that I will, yeah, okay, I am developing the
that's
argument.
your question?
I mean, as I said, you just write down the most general Lagrangian, which is invariant. And it turns out that the most general Lagrangian, which is invariant under SU2 left cross U1, allows both Dirac masses and Majorana masses for the right-handed neutrinos, okay? Now you have to see what we are going to do with the fact that we have those two terms. Okay, so what we are going to see, so I mean, a priori, there is no reason why this term should not be there, unless you assume an extra symmetry, which we would forbid it. But then you do a strong assumption on top of that. The most minimal thing you can do is not to assume any new symmetry and just to write down the most general Lagrangian. This symmetry, by the way, would be, this is delta L equal to 2. Because from the Dirac term, you have a new left which goes to a new right and a H. So you can say, this conserves lepton number if the new right has same lepton number as the new left. But then you go here and you see that you get delta L equal to 2. So if you want to forbid that, you can say, total lepton number is conserved. So I mean, this would be equal to 0 if you assume a U1 total lepton number. So it's a U1 and the new right is transforming with a phase proportional to the lepton number. That would forbid this term. But then you have to assume that, I mean, the standard model, total lepton number is conserved just by chance. You never assume that it has to be conserved. You just write down the most general Lagrangian under the gauge group invariant, and you see that there is no term breaking lepton number. And now here, that would be different. You would have to assume that there is an extra symmetry to forbid that. And a priori, there is no reason why it should be forbidden. It should be there, this symmetry. You can assume it. If you assume it, then you have Dirac masses, and you need very small Yukawa couplings. But if you don't assume it, you have both terms. And so what you get in this case is that from the combination of both terms, you are going to induce an effective interaction which has the form of the Weinberg operator. So you can see that in at least two ways. You can consider a diagram where you have H, L alpha, L beta, and here you put a new right I, a new right I, so and Majorana mass, M new right I. So here I am in the basis where M new right is diagonal. I mean, I am already diagonalizing the last mass matrix there, and I go in the basis where the matrix is diagonal, and then you have only M new right I. I mean, you have I and not Ij, okay? So here you have a Yukawa coupling, Y new Ij, and here another one, no, it's not Ij, it's I beta. And here you have Y new I alpha. So you see, I take the first term, the Yukawa interaction, I take it twice, and then I join both Yukawa diagrams with Majorana mass, which, as we have seen there, is changing the sign of the fermion arrow. Okay? If you compute such so if you assume that M new right I is much bigger than V, for example, but in fact it works even if even if it's much smaller. So basically, what you will get. So I mean, okay, you can say typically bigger than MH and ML you have there. So the particles you exchange here is very heavy compared to the external particles, okay? If you do that, then what you will get is nothing but an interaction of this form, effectively, from the point of view of the external particle, you have an interaction like that. H, L alpha, L beta. And this is nothing but this one. Okay, I mean, it's the same diagram as here. Okay? So, and here you have a C alpha beta over lambda, which will be minus 1/2 sum over the right-handed neutrinos, y nu I alpha, y nu I beta over m nu R I. Okay? So you see y nu I alpha, y nu I beta. And then the one over 2 comes from the two vacuum expectation value. No, they are still not there. No, there is a 1 over 2 coming from I don't remember from where is coming this minus 1 over 2. Okay, but let's forget about it. We will see after. It's not so important, factor 2. Sorry? No, because C alpha beta is not, it's before symmetry breaking that you get this coupling, okay? So there is no 1 over 2 coming from there. But okay, you can integrate you can do write down the Feynman amplitude, compute it. And the point is that the one over m nu right I, in fact, comes from m nu right I, which comes from the mass insertion here, which is like a vertex, okay, over p square minus m nu right I square, which is the propagator of the right-handed neutrino. I don't give so much details here, and so it is minus 1 over m nu right I, because the p square can be neglected, and that's why you get an effective theory with a coupling which is just a constant. It's because you assume the right-handed neutrinos to be much heavier than the external particles. So the p square here will be proportional. I mean, it's the momentum flowing in the propagator. It will be much smaller. It will be proportional to the mass of the H and L, which are much smaller. So, okay. So that's in this way that you get an effective interaction. And you can do it because you assume mass hierarchy, okay? So there is no more momentum dependence, okay? Now, that's one way to see it, but
Thomas,
I don't really do it in full details.
There's a factor of minus a half here. Is that a factor that you use in the
Yes, no, well, it should be easy to see, but it's just that I am in front of the blackboard. So,
no, that's okay.
Okay, I can tell you, I don't want to spend time on that.
No worries.
Yeah. Okay, so that's one way to see it. No, another way to see it is, so this way is nice to see that you induce the Weinberg operator from the exchange of a heavy particle whose propagator is a constant because it's much heavier, okay? Now, you can also take back the full Lagrangian and write the full Lagrangian after symmetry breaking. So I just take the two terms there, nu left alpha, and then I will also put the HC. That's the HC of this. Minus 1/2 m nu right I, nu right I C bar, nu right I minus the HC, which is m nu right I, because we are in the basis where the mass of the right-handed neutrinos are diagonal and real, nu bar Ri, nu Ric. Okay? So that's the full Lagrangian U wave. So now this, in fact, is the same as nu left alpha bar C, nu right I C, and this is the same as nu right I C bar nu left C. I mean, you can write this term either in this way or in this way. I mean, the nu bar right will become the nu right C. And the nu left bar C is like a nu left transposed. Okay, so it has the same physical content. And if you do that, then you can convince yourself that you can write down. I mean, here we have what I call the Dirac mass. Okay, I call it with m nu Dirac there. So you can write it as nu left bar C, nu right bar. I don't put the flavor indices anymore. These are three component and three component. 0 m dt. Yes, so it's m nu dt, m nu d, m nu right times nu left nu right C plus HC. So I mean, you will, so now this is a 6x6 matrix. If you have 3 right-handed neutrinos, and okay, you can see that if you take this off-diagonal term, it will be one of these two. And then, since here you will have the transposed, and these terms, they will, I mean, for example, here I have nu bar right, nu right C, so it's this one, and it comes with 1/2 m nu right, okay? I think I forgot the minus sign here, okay? So, I mean, it will take you 1 minute to do the correspondence that it matches, okay? And at some point, you have to use this notation rather than this one. Okay, so now, so in fact, you have a 6x6 mass matrix because the Dirac mass is mixing the left-handed neutrinos with the right-handed singlet neutrinos, okay? So the Dirac mass gives you an off-diagonal, the off-diagonal elements of this 6x6 matrix. And you have m nu right because you have right-handed neutrino masses, only for the right. But you have a 0 here because you have, as we have seen already several times, this is forbidden by SU2 left cross U1 invariance. You cannot have a nu left bar C, nu left would be a Majorana mass for the left-handed neutrinos. But this cannot, it's not allowed from the start, okay? So you have 0. Now you can diagonalize this matrix in a way of, I mean, blocks by blocks, 3x3 blocks by 3x3 blocks. And so you get minus 1/2, the same thing, nu bar left C, nu right bar. And then you can insert, okay, here it's convenient to do it in this way. I will explain that in 1 second. So you have this MD, TMD, mu right, U new dagger, new left,
Excuse me, Professor.
new right C. Yes.
Is there any reason that why we are considering the Majorana masses diagonal, the matrix, the Majorana matrix diagonal, or because
Well,
in principle we can
I mean, you
consider-
can always already make a rotation between the 3 right-handed neutrinos
Yeah, but it is only to simplify.
to get this diagonal and real, because then it's easier. You can go to this basis. It's what I do there. Is it the question?
Yeah, it's because, for example, in the Yukawa sector, well, the Yukawa matrix, we are not considering diagonal, and we use the corresponding unitary transformation to
So
use
here
it
I already did a unitary transformation
for the Majorana. Okay.
only on this part
Yeah, exactly.
to make it diagonal.
Well,
And after, I have to do, now that I get that, I have to do a second transformation, unitary
the-
transformation, which this time is 6 by 6.
Yeah.
And this is this one. So this matrix is symmetric because, I mean, it has the Majorana form, new bar left C, new left, new right bar, new right C. So these are, I mean, this matrix will be symmetric. That's why I have a transposed here, because we have seen that for Majorana mass, it's symmetric. Because this is nothing but new T. So you have new T, new. So you have twice the same thing. So it has to be symmetric, and it is like that for everything. So I can diagonalize it with a U new matrix here and a U new T matrix here.
Yeah.
And then you have to, I mean, this is equal, you insert twice the identity matrix, okay?
Yeah, sure.
And then this will be a diagonal matrix, but only for 3 by 3 blocks.
Yeah.
I don't fully diagonalize it. I don't need to do that at this time. So typically what you will get is minus m dt, m new right minus 1, m d md. And here you will get m new right plus m dt, m new right minus 1 md. Okay? I mean, you can convince that when you do a block-by-block diagonalization, you will get that because you have to conserve the trace. And you see the trace is still the same. The trace here is just m new right, and here is the same. And you have also to conserve the determinant, and you can see that, but there is a subtlety here, is that we are interested only at the first correction in m Dirac over m nu right.
Yeah.
If you want to be exact, there are extra corrections. But so at first order in md over m nu d over m nu right. Okay? Because we have assumed that the right-handed neutrinos are much heavier than all other particles. So it's much bigger than the vacuum expectation value. So you can do this expansion, and you get that. So at the end of the day, what do you get? You get, so these are the mass eigenstates, okay? These ones. They are the mass eigenstates. I mean, 3 by 3, huh? After, you have still to diagonalize the 3 by 3 blocks, but this I don't do, okay? So typically, you have 3 mass eigenstates with, which are typically new right I prime, which are the new right I, plus a small component of order md, mu d over m nu right times nu left C bar, because you have right-handed components. And they have masses. They have masses, so these are these ones. They have masses which are essentially the initial masses, because this is a small correction with respect to that. So with masses equal to m nu right. Okay? And then you have three other mass eigenstates, which are nu left I prime, which are the nu left I, plus order same thing times nu right bar C. And these have a mass matrix, which is this one. Okay? So you have minus m nu d, m nu right, minus 1, md. Okay? And so why do they have small corrections? Because the mixing angles between the two blocks will be of order md over m nu right. So you get that, okay? Now, if I look at this expression, what I find is that I get exactly, and it's not a surprise, the same expression as here. So, okay. So you get m nu left prime. I will call it in this way. I mean, for the nu left. So they are essentially left-handed plus, I mean, from the original left-handed plus a small left-handed component, which is coming from the right-handed neutrinos conjugated state. Okay, and then you have also the conjugated states of that, which are right-handed for each one. So m nu left prime will be minus m nu dt m nu right minus 1 m nu d. And this is nothing but minus 1/2 y nu I alpha, y nu I beta, v square over m nu right I with a sum over I. And this is what we were getting from integrating out the heavy state in this diagram. I mean, I didn't say it, but we have seen that for a given C alpha beta, we get m nu equal to this times v square. So I get the same thing. So you can see that in two ways, okay? So the bottom line at the end of the day is that unless if you have right-handed neutrinos, or you call them right-handed neutrinos, but they could be called just fermion singlets. One is right and the conjugated state is left, so we call them right, but they are not right. I mean, there is one right and the conjugated state is left. You have both. So unless you assume an extra lepton number conservation symmetry, you have Majorana masses for the right-handed neutrinos. And if those right-handed neutrinos are much heavier, then you see that the mass eigenstates of the total 6x6 matrix, 3 of them are the heavy states, and they are essentially the original fermion singlets, and 3 of them are with masses very small, because it goes in v square over m nu right, and they are essentially the original standard model neutrinos plus a small component from the fermion singlet. Okay, so that's the bottom line. Okay, now since I see that I'm a bit slow again, so still two things to close the Well, three things to close this chapter on neutrino masses. The first one has to do with the question, how many parameters we have in this model in L. I mean in those Yukawa couplings and fermion singlet masses. So you have three real, okay, MEL. So I count them too. I mean, in the left-hand sector, we have the mass of the electron, the muon, and the tau. Then you have three real M nu right I to start with. The three you have here, which is diagonal. You take the diagonal basis. And then you have six real, 9 real plus 9 imaginary parameters in Y nu, because Y nu can be any complex matrix. Okay, it's 3 by 3. But again, you got, in fact, 3 phases can be eliminated if you do, again, a rephasing, like I did also for the UPMNS matrix. So typically, you take Li to start with the doublet, you send them to E alpha I Li, and you do the same thing for the right-handed charged leptons. And you can convince yourself that if you do that, nothing will change in the Lagrangian nowhere, but the Yukawa couplings matrix, because this one has the left-handed. I mean, you have the left-handed neutrinos in the doublet. So we'll rephase the left-handed neutrinos, and this will change your Yukawa matrix. So at the end of the day, you have in Y nu, you have 9 real plus 6 phases. Okay. Now you can compare that with what what you have in the neutrino mass matrix, and we have seen that in the Majorana case, and here we get Majorana masses, you have much less parameters, which means that the seesaw, I mean, you have the seesaw here. If the right-handed neutrinos are heavier, you get naturally small masses for the standard model neutrinos. But the price to pay is that, first of all, your right-handed neutrinos can be very heavy. I mean, if the couplings of Yukawa couplings are of order 1, you are at 10 to the 14 GeV. Because, okay, I just erased it, but when I did this identification of the C alpha beta over lambda, I said it's like Y nu square over the mass of the right-handed neutrinos. So the lambda becomes the masses of the right-handed neutrinos. Okay, so if your right-handed neutrinos are at 10 to the 14 GeV, it's very nice to explain that neutrino masses are small, but you will never see them. Okay. And so that's the price to pay. And the other price to pay is that you have many more parameters in the Lagrangian than parameters you can measure from the light neutrino mass matrix. Okay. So typically, in M nu, okay, I call it M nu left prime, which is the mass matrix, the low energy mass matrix. We have seen that we have 6 real plus 3 phases. So you have M nu 1, 2, 3, the one we see we probe in neutrino oscillation, plus the 3 angles, the Euler angles we have seen, plus delta Dirac alpha and beta, which are there for Majorana masses. Okay. So you see that at the end of the day, when you and then we have also the three MLI we know. Okay. So when you compare what you have in the full Lagrangian with what you have at low energy, because what you can see at low energy are the entries of that, you see that there are 6 real plus 3 phases, which are decoupling. So, I mean, you don't see them in the low energy world. The low energy world is the neutrino mass matrix. So, I mean, they are high energy parameters. I mean, there are all high energy parameters in the original Lagrangian. But some of the combination of the high energy parameters you can probe at low energy through the neutrino mass matrix. But some others not. Okay? And then one way to parameterize this, and it will be useful for leptogenesis when we will talk about how predictive we can be along the leptogenesis mechanism to explain the baryon asymmetry of the universe. In fact, you can write down a R matrix, which is defined as V over square root of 2 M nu right minus 1 half. And we are again in the, assuming we are in the basis where it is diagonal, times Y nu, U PMNS, times M nu diagonal, minus 1 half. So this is the M nu 1, M nu 2, M nu 3 you probe in oscillations. Okay? So if you define such a matrix, then you can invert it, and you get Y nu is equal to square root of 2 over V M nu right 1 half R M nu diagonal 1 half U P MNS Dagger. You see, you get that right away. And the point is that if now I go back to the what I called M nu prime here, the 3 by 3 block you get here, okay? We have seen that it is equal to minus Y nu T M nu right minus 1 Y nu times V square over 2. This is what I got, I erased it already, but no, it's what we get there at the end. You can write it in this way. And so if you inject Y nu in this expression, you will get U PMNS star M nu diagonal U PMNS Dagger. You can do that, it's very easy. And so what we see is that you get in the light neutrino mass matrix the parameters you expect, I mean the diagonal matrix and the UPMNS matrix, which was the one we were using to diagonalize this mu diagonal. There is a subtlety here in the basis where the 3 charged leptons are diagonal, ME, MU, M2. So, okay, you can think about that. I will not spend too much time, but basically, this is, we know that mu prime must have this expression. So we are working in the ME, MU, M2 basis. And then UPMNS, which was UL, U, new, I mean, it was combination of 2 matrices. I don't remember in which order they were. I mean, if you are in this basis, there is only the the UPMNS matrix is the one which will diagonalize the neutrino mass matrix, and here I inverted the relation from mu diagonal to mu non-diagonal. So okay, it's what you expect, and the point is that this is independent of this matrix R. Now, if you take R and you multiply it by its transpose, you can just take this definition, you multiply it by the transpose, you use the neutrino mass matrix relation, and you get that it is 1. So R is a complex, because it has no reason to be real, complex orthogonal matrix. And a complex orthogonal matrix has 3 angles plus 3 phases. And so it's exactly what you need. I mean, together with the three new right I, which are very heavy, so these are clearly decoupling parameters. You get 6 real decoupling parameters because R is not in the neutrino mass matrix, plus 3 phases, which are also decoupling parameters. So you exactly get the 6 real and 3 phases you had here, which are decoupling. So that's very convenient because it says, okay, what I know from the low energy perspective is mu diagonal and UPMNS. Okay? And then, let's go here. This I can know partly from oscillations. Okay, these also. And then I take any values of mu right, 1, 2, 3, any orthogonal matrix, and I will get any Yukawa matrix which can account for the neutrino data. And so you have a degeneracy. I mean, you have a null parameter space with 9 parameters, which are, I mean, if you take any orthogonal complex matrix, you can parameterize that with 3 angles and 3 phases, plus the 3 MNU right, which are very heavy, so they are also decoupling. So if you vary those 9 parameters, here you will get all the Yukawa coupling matrices which can account for what you observe at low energy. Okay, and that will be convenient because then we will see, when we will consider leptogenesis, we will see that if it depends on the low energy parameters or the high energy parameters, so if we can be predictive or not. Okay. So the last thing on this chapter are now about the 2 other CISO models. So I say that the type 3 CISO is a CISO where you take H and L alpha and H and L beta with in a triplet combination here and so also in a triplet combination here. So here you have a triplet. So it's a fermion which is a triplet of SU2 with 0 hypercharge. So you will have a sigma right I, because you can have several of them, which is sigma right I plus sigma right I 0 and sigma right I minus. So you can exchange here a sigma right I and here a sigma right I, because again you go in the diagonal basis, so this is M sigma right I. So I mean it's just the same thing as the type 1, but you exchange triplets instead of singlets. So the Lagrangian is minus y sigma, which are the Yukawa couplings, sigma right I bar, h tilde dagger plus hc. And these two, I will not specify that here, but you take them in the triplet combination. Minus 1/2 m sigma I, sigma bar c right I, sigma right I plus hc. So even for a triplet, because it has no hypercharge, you can write down a Majorana mass term. So you will have a cross here too, and it's the same thing, in fact, except that you have triplets instead of doublet. And then you have the type 2. The type 2, as we have seen, is different because you exchange a scalar triplet. So type 2, what you have is, we have seen, it's a L alpha, L beta, then you exchange what we can call a delta. We call it L because it couples to 2L doublet. H, H. And so the Lagrangian here is, here you have a scalar. There is no Majorana mass for a scalar. So you have minus YL alpha beta, L bar C alpha L beta times delta left minus mu delta H dagger H tilde delta left plus HC. So this delta, so here you take that in a triplet combination, and that too. In the notes I explicit, I write down exactly how you get a triplet combination in this case, but I will not do it here. And so this triplet has hypercharge 2 because it couples to 2 left-handed doublets, and each one have L equal to 1. So the triplet is delta plus plus, delta plus, and delta naught, because it has hypercharge equal to 2, because it couples to 2 left-handed doublets or 2 X doublets. Okay? So if you do that, you get again the Weinberg operator, and C alpha beta over lambda now will be minus mu delta, because you have a mu delta here. And here you have a YL. So you have a YL alpha beta. And then you have a M squared delta coming again from 1 over P squared minus M squared delta. Propagator, and you neglect P squared again, and you get that. So it means that the neutrino masses are, mu alpha beta will be, the light neutrino mass matrix will be minus mu delta YL alpha beta V square over M delta square. And so you see that if the mass of the triplet you exchange here is much bigger than the vacuum expectation value electroweak scale, then again, mu will be very suppressed. So see so if m delta much bigger than v. And in the type 3, the seesaw is just the same way as in type 1. The neutrino mass expression is just the same. With Yukawa couplings over the heavy mass matrix. Okay, so that's the end of the first part. I expected to do it in at most 1.5 lecture, but okay. We will do a bit less of leptogenesis, but in the 10 minutes remaining, let's then go at last to leptogenesis. So we will take, we will consider mostly the type 1 seesaw model to talk about leptogenesis. So the one with the right-handed neutrinos. So as we have seen, we want to explain that NB over N gamma is of order 6 10 to the minus 10. So it's also NB over S, the entropy density, which is order 9 10 to the minus 11. So this comes from CMB data, which tells you that omega b h square, h is the reduced Hubble constant, it is 0.67, is equal to 0.0224 plus or minus 0.001. And you have also BBN, you've seen that last week, which tells you that, okay, there are various estimates there, but one is that omega b h square is within this range. So these values of omega b, you can transfer them into NB over N gamma in the 2D, or NB over the entropy density 2D. So I will not explain that anymore because I think you had already explanation about that. Just say that it's very impressive that these two numbers, they agree because they concern two totally different epochs of the, I mean, in the early universe phase after the Big Bang. BBN arises much before recombination for the CMB. But nevertheless, there is a nice agreement between these two numbers, okay? So now I will to explain those numbers, I want to consider the leptogenesis mechanism. And the leptogenesis mechanism, the motivation is like for any, first of all, like for any explanation of the baryon asymmetry of the universe, is that baryogenesis, so those numbers requires BSM physics. It's not with the CP violation you have in a standard model that you can explain those numbers. And the motivation for leptogenesis is that leptogenesis is able to account for baryogenesis, those numbers, from the very same physics as the one you anyway sort of have to introduce to account for the neutrino masses, okay? So BSM, for leptogenesis, the BSM physics is the new physics at the origin of neutrino masses. So in a way, you know that neutrino masses so far constitute the only clear laboratory evidence we have for new physics. We have other evidence like baryogenesis is also evidence for new physics, but this is of cosmological nature. But from the particle physics point of view, the fact that neutrinos have masses is the only laboratory evidence for new physics. So anyway, you know you have to add something to the standard model to account for the neutrino masses. And then you do that, and if you do that, you don't need to add anything else. And this mechanism is perfectly able then to account for the baryon asymmetry of the universe. Okay? Now, there are three so there are three basic ingredients, but I will not have time to go through that today, but at least a bit. So the first one is called the CP asymmetry. So typically, you assume the type 1 seesaw Lagrangian. That's the one you assume to account for the neutrino masses, and then you explain in a nice way why neutrino masses are small through the seesaw. And so when we talk about leptogenesis, in general, we call the right-handed neutrinos not like new right, but we call them n right I, H tilde dagger L alpha plus HC. So I am just rewriting the Yukawa couplings we had in the type 1 seesaw model, but I call them now the right-handed neutrinos N, which is maybe better because anyway, they don't go with the left-handed neutrinos to form Dirac masses only, okay? And then you have -1/2 MNI. I will call the masses like that. N bar, N right, I, C, plus HC. No, I forgot the N right, I, plus HC. So this is the type 1 seesaw Lagrangian. I just call them now N. Okay, no, the point is that we are considering the early universe epoch when the universe was in its radiation-dominated era. So you had a kind of plasma of relativistic particles, a very short time after the Big Bang. And this plasma is characterized by a temperature. And at a temperature above the M and I, then the right-handed neutrinos, are in thermal equilibrium. It means they can be in thermal equilibrium with, for example, standard model leptons and X particles through the Yukawas, for example. So this interaction will go fast in every direction. You have thermal equilibrium. Or it could be in thermal equilibrium from other interactions. It could be that those right-handed neutrinos they have other interaction with yet other BSM particles. Okay, so it means that the number of Ni over T is GNI 3/4 zeta. This is just a usual formula of plasma T cube, whereas N gamma is G gamma zeta over 3 over pi square T cube. So This is the number of degrees of freedom you have for a right-handed neutrino. This is 2. And for a photon, it's also 2. Okay? Now, at t, and I will finish with that, at t smaller than m and I mean when t gets smaller than m and I, what will happen is that the Ni will disappear from decays. So typically, Ni can go to LJH from this Yukawa coupling, but it can also go to the conjugated state. So H star. And the reason why a same n can go to both, it's because, okay, here I take Ni equal to n right I plus n right I C. This is the physical particle, the Ni. We've seen that for a Majorana particle, and these are Majorana particles due to this mass term, the physical state is a quantum superposition of both conjugated states. Okay? So Ni, can go to LH from this coupling, but can also go to the conjugated state from the HCE. Okay? So then, what is the CP asymmetry? In fact, the averaged delta L produced each time Ni decays is equal to the CP asymmetry. So the CP asymmetry is what? The average, clearly, it's called epsilon Ni. So epsilon Ni is equal to gamma Ni to LJH minus gamma Ni to Lj bar H star over the total decay width of Ni. Okay? So that's clearly the average delta L you produce, because this has L equal to 1, and this has L equal to -1. And clearly you understand that this is, the number of decay of this type will be proportional to the decay width of this type to this decay width. So you take the difference and you divide by the total decay width. So that's called the CP asymmetry. So clearly it requires CP violation. First L violation, because the same particle can decay to leptons and antileptons. Okay, and this is provided by the delta L equal to 2 M and I. Okay, these are Majorana masses. Okay, M and I. If you take a right-handed neutrino here, you will get the conjugated component here. This is delta L equal to 2. So this is the first Sakharov condition. To have baryogenesis, you need baryon number violation. But leptogenesis, you are dealing with leptons first. So first you have to induce a lepton asymmetry. For that, you need to have a source of lepton number violation. It is there. It also requires CP violation and C violation. And I will finish with that. So CP violation, these two processes are CP conjugate one of the other. you can show. So one way to say is that if no CP violation, then gamma, whatever process I to F, will be equal to gamma I bar to, well, we call them ICP to FCP. And so each time a particle is decaying to F to produce maybe a lepton, then the CP conjugated state, which for Ni is the same because it's an auto-conjugate particle, Majorana spinor, will go to antileptons with the same rate. And you also get C violation. And so, okay, this is Ni going to LJH. And this is Ni going to LJ bar H star. And you also need C violation, because if no C violation, then gamma I to F will be equal to gamma IC to FC. The charge conjugate in the sense of the C transformation. But that you know anyway that there is not such an equality, because, for example, the left-handed standard model particles, they are the leptons here, they are purely left. So you have a V minus A structure, and you don't have the V plus A correspondent. Then we can see that it means you break C anyway. I mean, one way to say it is that you have only left-handed neutrinos, and their antiparticles which are their CP conjugate, but you have no left-handed, you have no C conjugate of the left-handed neutrinos. There are no right-handed neutrinos. So the C conjugate would be the conjugated states of the right-handed neutrinos, but you don't have them. I mean, the standard model. Okay, so I mean, this is the second Sakharov condition, and clearly it's satisfied. Okay, why is it satisfied for CP? Because in the Yukawa couplings, you can have phases, and that we will see in the next lecture. Okay, thank you.